What's going on, guys? Matty A here with the Six Figure Flipper, and today's training for lead generation is all about bandit signs. And bandit signs, depending on who you ask, are an amazing lead generation strategy, very cost effective and very great for getting results. Bandit signs led me to my very first deal when I was broke, just getting out of college, credit card debt, not a whole lot of experience with lead generation, what it meant, and how to find leads. And really, I knew that I needed to find off-market leads because the MLS was extremely competitive. That bandit signs seemed like a good strategy, but at the time I didn't know what I didn't know, and I want to make sure that I give you guys all the information you're going to need in order to make the most educated decision on whether or not to include this as a lead generation channel in your marketing system. So we're going to go over today what are bandit signs, why they're effective, some of the pros and cons that have to do with bandit signs, determining your budget, and based on your budget, mapping out an execution and an action plan behind that, setting up your lead intake system and how you're going to field those leads. And once you have that idea, then it's creating the bandit sign, right? Some things that you're going to want to take into account when you're actually designing and having these bandit signs made, where you're going to place them and what might actually get you the best results, how to track your signs and make sure that you don't lose where they're at, and most importantly, tracking your leads as they come in. You're going to want to make sure that you have a great system for taking these leads in and actually being able to follow up with them in the right way to increase your conversion, increase your opportunity for revenue. And then obviously the rinse and repeat, and some things that you're going to want to avoid and some things that you're going to want to do in order to be successful. So what is a bandit sign? I mean, a bandit sign is essentially exactly what you think it is. I mean, it's a mini billboard that's usually on 24/7. It's a street sign basically that's on corrugated plastic, and it has your marketing message on it. So it has room for you to generally put on certain call to actions that will entice whoever it is that you're marketing to reach out to you, right? This is your lead generation kind of vehicle for bridging the gap between you and your potential consumer or customer. Now, why are bandit signs effective? Well, running an effective bandit sign campaign means that you've done your research and you've strategically placed your signs in heavily trafficked areas that homeowners, or the people that you're trying to reach, the homeowners who own the type of properties that you're looking for, can see it, right? So remember, these homeowners don't have anything, they don't have to do anything with your marketing other than take down your phone number or the website or whatever is listed on the sign and reach out to you. It's that simple, right? They also have not been contacted by you. So bandit signs are extremely effective because you know that the people who are reaching out to you are reaching out because they have an immediate need or a problem or a question that they want to ask, right? So you didn't solicit them. This is more them seeing your marketing piece and reaching out to you. And you have the ability to offer them a solution to their problem through this marketing piece, which gets them in the door. And that's really all you want. You just want the phone to ring, and you want to make sure that you have the ability to get in front of these motivated sellers, which is hard in most markets, being that all of the low-hanging fruit is often getting picked, right? Getting picked, getting overbid, going into contract really fast. So finding different lead generation channels are important. I think of lead generation as pawns, right? And based on who is sitting around the bank of the pond and how competitive it is going to determine whether I decide to cast my line in or not. And based on if I decide to cast my line in or not, I want to make sure that I'm giving myself the best chance to win. And the best chance to win is by having the best bait and by having the best system, right? And executing on that system. So we're going to talk about why bandit signs are so effective. Now, some things that you're going to want to take into account Obviously, there's pros and cons with every marketing strategy, right? And some things that you're going to want to know about the Bandit signs is Bandit signs are great. They're a fast way to generate unsolicited calls, right? These are sellers that are reaching out to you. So obviously the seller has some level of motivation to sell if they're contacting you. And as we discussed in one of the previous training videos, using a friendly conversational tone and showing empathy will help you build rapport with the seller, which in turn will help you uncover their true motivation to sell, right? And so that's why Bandit signs are great, is because instead of you sending them, say, a direct mail piece or door knocking them, it's really you putting and casting the line out, having the right bait, and they are the ones who bite and come to you, right? Same thing goes for if you have investors in your market and they're looking to get more wholesales or get on your cash buyers list, this is a great way of also increasing your investor database and network. And depending on how you market your signs, it also has a great way and opportunity for you to build more exposure around your brand, right? And other things to keep in mind is, Bandit signs are really a very cost-effective way of getting a lot of eyes and ears on what you're doing. And that's why many people like Bandit signs, is because they're cheap. And instead of paying, $15,000 to $20,000 to be on a freeway on a billboard, you have the ability to pay, $1.50 or $2 for these Bandit signs and post them where you want strategically. And it helps you keep your marketing costs down with essentially, hopefully, having the same effect, right? Now the cons. Of course, every city is different. And, there's a reason why these street signs are known as quote unquote Bandit signs. And many cities and municipalities do not permit these types of signs per their local city code, right? They think it makes the city ugly, or, it has some adverse effect. So you're going to want to remember to check with your local city or town officials before you actually start posting any of these signs, or where you're actually posting them, to make sure that the ordinances don't apply to you, because most ordinances are tied to some kind of fine, and these can range anywhere from $100 I've heard ranging up to $500 or $1,000 per violation. So that's per sign. So just keep that in mind, right? And if they want to charge you, they can, and you're just kind of at their mercy. So double check, do your due diligence ahead of time, just to make sure, because I don't want you getting any unnecessary fines or slaps on the wrist if you can avoid them. Others, obviously, as easily as these signs can be placed, someone can easily remove them, right? So that means that you'll be replacing these signs on a regular basis. So not only is your marketing dollars getting taken down, the money that you put into creating these signs, the time that goes into driving and putting them up, it's also a bummer when they get ripped down and you constantly have to replace them, right? So pros and cons, you can obviously weigh this out a little bit and determine what makes more sense. And if this is something that you want to do, but usually the pros definitely outweigh the cons if you follow a system. I'm going to always keep going back to systems, right? Systems are scalable, systems are duplicatable, and systems are easy to plug people in and out of. Therefore, if you want to use this as a strategy long term, think of this as a way that you don't have to do this yourself, because you have a system and you can delegate it and leverage it off to somebody else. Last one thing that I wanted to highlight on the cons is it's important to have a detailed system, right, in place for how you're going to place your signs, how you're going to track them, the route that you're going to pick them up, all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure that we have a system so you're not losing it. So there you have it, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. You need to decide if the risk is worth the reward. So once you determine that, then we're going to want to figure out our budget and our plan. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, realistically, what can I afford to spend on this campaign every week or every month, depending on how often you're going to circulate around and put in or pick up signs? And, while it is a more cost-effective strategy, there is some recurring costs that go into this, right? So you want to take that into account. And often when starting a new campaign, you may not have, a definitive cost, but you can at least make a few assumptions of what you think the response rate might be. And then you can ballpark a budget or a number to determine what your ROI might be. And this will definitely help you determine if this type of campaign or strategy makes sense for you. If it's going to cost you, if you think it's going to be 100 signs to get you one deal, but that one deal is going to make you $20,000, and the 100 signs and the time and energy that went into it is going to cost you, $500, then that ROI might be worth it. You find that return on investment of your time and your money. Most people, 10 out of 10, are going to say absolutely, right? So that's where determining a budget and a plan behind that budget makes sense. So if you determine that this strategy is something that you want to use, set a goal and then commit to creating a replicatable system, and make sure that you're always tracking these costs for your supplies and the responses that you receive from each campaign. And that way, this will help you really break down over time what is your actual return on your investment. So however many, signs you put out and the costs, right? How many calls come in, how many appointments you actually go on, how many of those appointments turn into an offer, how many offers turn into closed business, how many of those closed projects get flipped over with a new buyer that purchases it from you, and you generate and collect some kind of revenue from it. You can take your revenue and depending on how much you spend, you can determine how much of a return you got on that investment, right? And this is where numbers are the scorecard of real estate investing. Numbers are the scorecard of business. Numbers are the scorecard of really everything, and they help you in this space make true black and white decisions and remove the emotion. And that's where lead generation is so important, to have the tracking and the systems behind, because then you're making real decisions based on real data. So setting up your lead generation intake system. It's important that you know how you're going to field and take these calls in, right? So I'm sure that you're anxious to get started placing those signs, but it's also important that you set up your lead intake system first. Let's be proactive instead of being reactive, and let's get things set up front instead of trying to build them or create it out of necessity on the back end, right? And nothing generally comes good out of the reactive responses. So if we can be proactive and plan ahead, we're going to be able to be more productive, more efficient in how we work through the system and how we execute on the system. So have you thought about how you're going to be fielding the calls that are going to be coming into your office? Are you going to be taking these directly? Is somebody in your office going to be fielding it? Is it going to be a service or a website? Either way, right, whatever you decide, you just need to know how you're going to handle your leads. So here are a few of the services that you might want to consider. Okay, so first is good old Google Voice. And Google Voice is a free virtual phone service that can be redirected to any third-party number. So you can forward it off to, an assistant, to a virtual assistant in the Philippines, to a family member, to whatever, right? Yourself, to another phone number that you have. But Google Voice is great because it can also record and transcribe the voicemails and then the emails that it sends them over to you, right? So you can actually get these and field these and follow up with these and delegate these leads accordingly as they come in. There are other online companies that offer the same type of service, such as voicemail and answering phone services, call forwarding, text notifications. There's a bunch out there, so do your research and determine based on your budget if you want to, utilize one of these. Now, if you're looking to add that extra professional touch, you might want to consider, using a call center. It's 24/7, it's automated, and that's more of an advanced high-level strategy for people that consistently have inbound calls and inbound leads coming in, so you can keep those organized. A third option, if you're directing prospects to go to your website, would be a website squeeze page, and you can make sure that you're using, simple, easy to type URL. And then when they land on your squeeze page, you're going to want to have it set up to capture your prospect's name, their contact information, such as email, preferably a phone number if you can, and the address of the property that they're calling about. So that's a quick little, run through on a high level overview of how to set up your lead intake system. and some things that you're going to want to make sure that you have available to get the most out of that lead, because that's where, if you don't capture that lead and you don't do it in the most effective way, that's marketing dollars going out the window. And we want to make sure that we maximize every effort possible when the lead calls to get them where we need them to go and move them through the process if it makes sense, right? And it's a win-win. We want to find a way to make sure we move them through the process in a way that gets them to making a decision and hopefully doing business with us, okay? So creating your Bandit sign. Okay, so now that we've got all the systems set up and out of the way, let's talk about creating your Bandit sign. So probably the most important element of your Bandit sign is obviously the message, right? The copy, the text on there. And you want to make sure that your message is blunt and to the point. I always like the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, right? And I always like that because it's that affirmation for myself of like, come on, stupid, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, right? So keep it as simple as possible. Shorter is better. And what you want to make is that text to be big and bold on the front, right? You want it to pop. You want it to stand out. The most important words are going to be the ones that you want the biggest. And just remember, people will be viewing these as they're driving by in cars majority of the time. So what does that mean? Well, it only gives them a few seconds to see your sign, a few split seconds to see your sign and decide to either take down the number and call you or not, right? And so in this case, bigger and bolder is always better. You're going to obviously want to test out a few different signs with different messages to see, what works and what doesn't, because it may vary dependent on your area. So simple rule of thumb that is often given, no more than 2 lines of text plus the phone number. Okay, so you'll see some people write a whole essay on there, and at the end of the day, it's all about getting them to call you. So you can see here some of the, different examples out there. We buy houses cash for fast. Your name buys houses. So John or Jill buys houses cash fast. Sell your house in 9 days. That's, one that's a little bit more of a unique value proposition. You've heard of, 1-hour home buyers or, 24-hour property purchasers or whatever it may be. Sell your home in 9 days, right? Something unique that helps you stand out from your competition. We buy houses. My opinion is we buy houses is a little oversaturated, but at the end of the day, as long as it is placed properly, then you have still the same chance that everybody else does to convert that lead. So one thing I want to make sure I highlight too is you want to have an easy to remember phone number. This is really important because the number can be, really the difference between them calling you or not. And when they're driving by and taking something down, they need something that is easier than harder to remember. So just keep that in mind. If some people ask, hey, do we do 800 numbers versus local numbers? That's all up to you. The 1-800, John buys, or a toll-free 800 number, whatever you decide to go with. I personally like local. If you have a local brand, right? If it's a national franchise or a national company, then national makes more sense and ties into your brand, right? But if you have a local company and that's really all you're marketing it as, then you might as well have a local phone number. People like talking to people that are in their market and understand their market than people that are just in a call center somewhere asking some questions that really have no idea what's going on in their market, right? So I would just say test it and see which one works best for you. All right, so where do you place the signs, right? Where do you place the signs? Well, you place the signs in a handful of different areas. There's no right or wrong answer to that, but you're going to want to place your signs in areas where there are distressed properties. Obviously, if you can identify a list and place those properties in that area, then that's obviously a very strategic and targeted approach. But you're going to want sellers calling you that are motivated to sell, right? They'll only be interested in selling you their property at a lower than market value rate when selling the house at a low rate as long as it's less painful than, the other process that is available to them. So you're going to want to place these Bandit signs in front of people who are highly motivated, which could be target lists, which determine what areas and intersections and, neighborhoods you decide to place it in. But the best place to hang these signs, logistically is going to be high up on telephone poles, right? That catch people's eye when they're driving by. You're going to want to do it in intersections that have a significant amount of traffic. You're going to want to do it in, shopping centers. You're going to want to do it in neighborhoods, parks, where people that are potential customers are going. So you want your signs to be in places that people can see them, that are in places where they can engage with them at. And you want to make sure that they are going to be in places that will not, hopefully, be disrupted or aren't easily accessible for others to damage or pull down your signs. Oftentimes, we always say you're going to want to stagger your signs, keeping them on average about 1/4 to a half mile apart. And just make sure, they're not directly across the street from one another, being that that's kind of a waste of a sign, right? So you want to make sure that you spread those out. Busy parking lots, rideshare parking lots are also good options. Home improvement stores and grocery stores are also good places to consider. Place a sign on any property of yours that you own or that you're renovating. This is a great way of also getting more brand awareness and more leads from the Bandit sign. Ask any family members or friends or contractors that have projects that they're working on or that they live in, if they'd be willing to let you place a sign in their yard. Basically, anybody that's willing to let you use some kind of, use this strategy on something that they're working on, or that, if they want to let you use their property, take advantage of that. The more eyes and ears on your yard signs, on your Bandit signs, on the brand, the better, right? And I've seen people offer a small monthly fee to keep their sign, posted in the yard, or offer them a referral fee if anything comes from it, right? So there's many strategic ways of getting people to help you place their signs, and also where to place your signs. So tracking your signs. Some people are like, man, if I put out my signs, I have no clue how I'm going to follow up and keep track of all these things. So there's a handful of ways that you can track your signs, right? If you've hired somebody to place your signs for you, you're going to want to make sure that you have the signs posted where they're supposed to be. So you're going to want to map out where you want these signs posted ahead of time. Create a route so that way it's easy to do it over and over again. And there's different apps and softwares that are out there now that you can utilize to track, like dropping a pin in an Android or an iPhone app that you can use to track your signs. You can take notes on. We also have available the Bandit sign ad placement script that you can put in Craigslist if you do want to hire somebody to place your signs, and a tracking sheet that you can utilize with that individual, whether it's for them or for yourself. If you want the simple, easy pen and paper system, or I would recommend doing more of a digital app-based tracking system, because it allows you to, one, send and share these routes with other individuals, and it's much easier, less user error when it comes to tracking in some of these apps. Tracking your leads. So to track how effective your leads are, make sure you're always asking this simple question. How did you hear about us? That is a question that you want to ask every single time somebody gives you a call. Why? Well, you need to ask this whether the seller is calling you or reaching out to you on the web or whatever it may be. You want to know what sign got them to call you, right? Because if you have 20 calls from one sign out of your 50 that are out, well, then you know that's the most effective sign or the most effective area and placement for your sign. Versus if you got 4, calls from another sign and you got 0 from the other, right? You're going to start seeing where some of your hot areas are. the hot zones, I like to call them. So by tracking your leads, you're going to have a better idea and you're going to have clues as to which areas are working. And you might, figure out, okay, I just got a ton of calls from this one and it's over by a Home Depot. Whereas I'm not getting any calls inside this particular neighborhood. Or I'm getting a ton of calls by the sign that I posted over in front of this intersection. Whatever it may be, we want to track. You've heard me say this in previous videos and trainings, tracking, tracking, tracking. Tracking leaves clues. It tells us what works. It tells us what doesn't. And it gives us really the, ideas of what we need to do in order to scale up on the things and double down on the things that are going well and scale back and really minimize or decrease the things that aren't working. So tracking your leads are extremely important. And when tracking your leads, don't just look at the location of the sign, consider the type of message too, right? Or the design or the size or the color, the phone number. I mean, you may be split testing different signs and seeing that different signs have different results. So make sure you consider this in your tracking as well. And if, you're getting a lot of short sale calls, then you need to prepare maybe something that might be a call of action in regards to short sales in a particular area or whatever it may be, right? Use the tracking of the system to tell you what is the next logical and best step. So remember, signs, might need to be replaced as early as 1 day after posting it, or up to 2 weeks is generally the recirculation time frame of going back out on the route to see which one's been taken down or damaged or whatever it may be. But signs can be removed by other investors, by the city, town, municipalities, the sign Nazis that I like to call them, or neighbors that just don't want that sign cluttering up their neighborhoods. So just make sure that you're tracking, and a good rule of thumb is to rotate your areas so you're only posting in those areas, say every 4 to 6 weeks, and that way you can increase your saturation in other areas as well with your signage, okay? So rinse and repeat. You will hear me say this over and over. Consistency is the key, right? Discipline is the hardest thing for anybody in any context of life. And you look at the top performers, the top achievers in their spaces, in their skills, in their knowledge, whatever it may be. These are people who have discipline and are consistent in their craft. They're consistent in their skill building. They're consistent in their activities, right? And a lot of that comes back to your habits. And you and your business, your leads will only grow to the extent that you do and to the extent that you execute. So consistency in this process is key. And if you're going to embark on a Bandit sign campaign, then make sure that your signs are actually being placed and that you are consistently tracking the leads and the areas so you can continue to tweak and fine tune and optimize your system. I only want you to do this if you're going to follow through with this, because this is what's going to get you the best results, and it's going to tell you what to do moving forward. And that will give you the best chance to win and make sure that you're getting the return on your time and money that you put into the Bandit sign system. So rinse and repeat, do this consistently, track, follow the system, and let the numbers tell you what your next steps are. So as we wrap up, there's some few things that you're definitely going to want to avoid, and there's some things that you're going to want to do in order to be more successful, right? So let's just highlight a few of the things that you need to make sure you don't fall victim to. One is too many signs in one area. If there are 50 signs in one area, don't become 51, right? Choose something that is less saturated and it gives you the opportunity to stand out. Other traps are obviously making sure that you are doing your research on code violations and signage violations. We don't want you getting any kinds of, fines, being that you're already, trying to be cost effective. Let's make sure that you don't invite any unnecessary tags or fines. The last thing you want to do is become an enemy of the city, right? Other traps to avoid is the wrong message. Buy your house in 2 days. If you can't perform on 2 days, then don't put that on your sign, right? So make sure that your signage is not only design the right way, but also make sure that your signage has the right message on it, and make sure that it's not too wordy. Make sure that it's, it's not too small, the wrong size, the wrong placement. You want to make sure that you take into account all the things that we've discussed here to make sure you get the most out of this Bandit sign system. Some success tips as we wrap up is staple signs high up on the telephone poles, right? They are more visible to the drivers and harder to take down. So if you want to get yourself a sign stapler, we will have the link to that in the show description. And this is, it looks like somebody created it in their garage and cut up a pipe and, screwed on a staple gun to it. And I can tell you, it works, it's effective, and it just proves that you don't need some crazy technology, contraption to be effective. Sign staplers are very effective and worth the investment. Number 2 is lettering is big and bold, right? Make it big and bold. Use a big old permanent marker if you're going to do the signs yourself. But I would recommend having a professional printer. Big and bold, no more than 2 lines, your website and your phone number. Easy to remember phone number is important, right? Making sure that it's easy to read, easy to remember, easy to write down. You want to make sure that they can call you. That's going to be the best and most effective way of converting them, is getting them on the phone with you, right? Also, same thing with your website, but at the end of the day, when they go to your website, what do you want them to do? You still want them to call you, or you want to be able to get their contact information. So the phone number is key. Respect other investors. This is something that I want to highlight, because it's somewhat of a wild, wild west, right? And I am a big believer in integrity, in ethics, and just not operating the way respectable human beings should operate, right? So respect other investors' signs and the time and energy that they've put into putting them out as well, right? So don't go putting your sign in front of other people's, or taking their signs out or off the stakes or whatever, right? Just act with integrity and do unto others as you would have done to yourself, right? The golden rule. So don't post your signs over other people's unless you're a ruthless mofo, then hey, have at it. Build a buyer's list by calling the numbers you see on other Bandit signs. Other investors may be interested in a property that you have for sale, right? So make sure that you are calling other people's Bandit signs. This is a great way of getting on their cash buyers list, getting on their wholesalers list, or just networking with other great investors in your market. And put your signs out on a Friday night or very early Saturday morning. I recommend doing it really early in the morning. Most people are, I would say between 3 to 5 a.m. is recommended. Very little traffic, very little, obviously, sign police or ordinances out, very little foot traffic with individuals walking around, which makes it a lot easier and more comfortable and safer for you to get the signs up and out that you want. Okay, so that's all we got for this presentation on Bandit signs. For more information on being a part of the 6-Figure Flipper course, mastermind community, group coaching, and training, you can always go to sixfigureflipper.com. Or if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, for more weekly tutorials, trainings, resources, and fun vlogs, all on real estate investing, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will look forward to seeing you on the flip side. Thanks, guys.